Hi, everyone. Welcome back, or welcome if it's your first time joining us for our School Leaders webinar series. We're glad you could take some time out of your busy day to join us. I just want to make sure I give this reminder right at the top of our session that we won't be meeting next week, but we'll finish out the following week on the 18th. So thanks for joining us today. And I'm going to turn it right over to Delicia to get us started. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you all for joining us today. The Center for Responsive Schools is very excited about this opportunity. I'm Delisha Liddell, and I'm an educational partnership consultant. And in the chat, if you don't mind, would you please tell us your role? And as you enter your role, please take a moment and reflect on your first weeks of school. You can add a comment in the chat about that as well.
You have lots of principals, counselors. This is great. Thanks for being here. Curriculum coordinators, directors, specialists. Great group. Yeah, and we were thinking almost everyone's probably back at school now, probably back with teachers and students and getting the ball running. Great start so far. Great to hear it. Fantastic start. That's awesome. We love to hear that.
Today's presentation will explore the power of language and how to use it to impact student success. We'll focus specifically on reinforcing language and rewards. And it's my hope that as we collaborate together, it will realign your journey in supporting educators. Language is what we say, and it's how we say it. Our words, our tone, and pacing, they have a part in our message and the way that our message is received. Language is one of the most powerful tools that we have, and it impacts how we think, how we act, and ultimately how we learn. It's not just a simple expression of our thoughts or feelings, it actually shapes our experiences. Language has a purpose, and it gives us time to speak about what we want to do with intention. In the first 6 weeks of school and beyond, we have an endless list of things that we're responsible for district-wide or school-wide, and everybody's tally is a little bit different, but a commonality we have would be our duty to teach children. All of our decisions are made based on students' well-being and their academic success, and it's very imperative that we lead the charge in getting to know our students to enhance their success so that they'll be able to embody self-awareness and self-management, and we can give them those tools to be responsible and make decisions. Effective leaders use language to communicate a clear vision. They inspire belief in students' potential, foster their confidence and their desire for achievement. Our achievement goals go beyond just intellectual development and emphasize the importance of nurturing their personal growth. We have a chance to support teachers and hold them to high expectations for their creating conditions for professional development or whether we're making gains in student learning. Students will feel supported, they'll feel challenged and motivated to learn, and they'll be able to turn different difficult subjects into experiences that are quite enjoyable. And because of language, we can help students to learn and be able to process their growth and tell us about their personal change. As the school year begins, consider some small shifts in your language, whether it be to establish relationships with students, they will set the tone for the school year. You can use the first weeks of school to notice, reinforce, and convey that we have faith in our students' abilities. We're reinforcing language describes, it names, and it affirms positive behavior, academic efforts, and our life skills. Reinforcing language, it showcases what students do well and it builds on their strengths. It may sound like praise, but praise is simple approval or admiration, whereas reinforcing language is descriptive and it focuses on behavior. It provides concrete examples for success. Take a moment to review these examples of reinforcing language. Looking at what you might say and what you should try instead. This type of language, which is reinforcing language, strengthens positive behaviors because you name what the student does well and it acknowledges their effort, their cooperation, and their progress. Example might be you lined up quickly and quietly. That shows that you're ready to learn. Use these stems to practice your own reinforcing language. Things to consider might be to be inclusive. Use terms such as second graders, students, artists. You want to send the message that everyone wants to belong or everyone does belong. It builds their confidence and self-esteem, and we have to communicate in a way that they are felt as learners across all the domains and that we believe in their abilities. When you use reinforcing language, you should try to do it with a calmness but firmness, a neutral tone. It helps everyone to maintain their balance and it conveys trust. Being intentional with your tone oftentimes helps to maintain dignity for students. Reinforcing language is impactful when we have carefully observed students. We want to see and mirror their strengths, their interests, and even their sadness and delight. Then we're more equipped to encourage them or help them to improve as they go or as they move past challenging tasks when working through assignments. Reinforcing language is a great tool in highlighting and celebrating positive behavior. Our language should be concrete, should be specific, have a warm tone, should offer descriptions, not over personal approval. It should have questions sometimes that might extend their thinking. They'll be able to find the positives when you name students, and you should avoid having individual students to be recognized. Effective feedback goes much further than just compliments and praise. When using reinforcing language, you can use it throughout the day, from arrival to dismissal in all situations. You should focus using it consistently with students, and you can do this whether they're in independent work time or if they're in groups. Some of the benefits of reinforcing language include helping students to understand actions that contribute to their success, supporting them while they develop independence and take responsibility for their behavior, building their confidence and community to strengthen relationships, and reinforcing the language so that it highlights the positive things that they've done. Now might be a good time for you to think about the kind of reinforcing language that you use.
So I think it was really important how you mentioned the difference between praise versus reinforcing language. And I think it's really easy to go to praise, like you did great, or this line looks amazing. And it'll help the kids feel good in the moment. But sometimes those comments don't let the kids know what it was that was so amazing about their line when they walk down the hall, right? So letting them know that like a straight line or a quiet line is what the goal is, like what we're looking for. That's what makes it so amazing. So I think like being really specific with reinforcing language helps move us beyond the general praise.
If you'd like to talk about this topic a little bit more, please contact us. Let us know how we can help you determine solutions.
Yeah, and I do see that Tina chimed in the comments too about goals for our students with our staff, and same thing. So our staff as school leaders want to hear the specifics. So if we're observing a lesson or watching our staff work with students, we want to let them know that we see things. So not just you did a great job with that lesson, but what was it that was so great? What specifically did the teacher do to bring about engagement? Great question about how do we introduce this idea to teachers. So the reinforcing language and teacher language is a component of the responsive classroom approach and the Fly 5 curriculum. And we do have a lot of resources on our website that you can access for free. We have articles and things. I dropped printable teacher language reminder posters that you can access. We also have a book called The Power of Our Words. And a lot of, just drop the link to that in the chat. A lot of schools use this book as a book study with their staff. It really talks about a lot of what Delisha just shared about reinforcing language, and then also using language to remind students and to redirect students so that we are helping them learn versus just always telling them what to do. Because if you're always just telling students what to do, they're going to look for you to tell them what to do all the time, and you're not there all the time. So we need to make sure that students understand what to do and how to do it and look for the good. And this types of teacher language helps us point that out for students. Oh, and Suzanne says she had a great experience using the book for a small faculty book club. So the book is called The Power of Our Words. And I dropped a link to it in the, oh, no, I didn't drop a link to it in the chat because I didn't set my chat to everyone. So I'm going to drop it right now. It's called The Power of Our Words, and it goes through different types of language and the nuances of it. So like the examples that Delisha shared, instead of good job, it's things like, you did a great job walking down the hallway quietly. That's how we take care of everyone in our school. So it's giving students the why behind why they're doing what they're doing, and lets them know that you saw it. So you're not just like a good job, great job person, but when you name it, then the kids really feel like you've seen them and you've seen their positive efforts towards following the rules. And so, using more reinforcing language means using less rewards. So you wouldn't want to have like a blanket, everyone gets a prize for lining up and walking quietly, because the prize also doesn't tell students exactly what they did and how they followed the rules. So again, it's more reinforcing language and less rewards. And yes, I did just share the link to the printables to everyone. So that's a free article on our website, and some great resources there to share with teachers. Tina, do you want to add to this topic?
I
I'm sure
love
you
it.
do.
You bet. So when I think about rewards too, right? Like that's an extrinsic kind of carrot that you're dangling. And what we're all about is building intrinsically motivated students. And when I think about the S in CARES, self-control. And a lot of times educators would come to me and say, how do we teach self-control? Yeah, absolutely. That's what we want. One of those things is that we have to shift it to an internal locus of control so that they understand these choices do have natural consequences, and there's good things that happen when you make those good choices as well. But we want them to do the right thing because it is the right thing, not because they're getting that prize or that reward. So if your school is maybe in transition with that, and especially when we think about PBIS, beautiful, great, have those clear high expectations, modeled and practiced clear things. Where we shift though is when we think about that getting the tickets or the paw prints and things. So when I think about it, we can shift and use our language to be that positive, to help them start seeing themselves as, how did that make you feel? How did that work for you as a learner? And sometimes with praise, this praise versus reinforcing language, we want to praise our children, right? But being specific, sometimes it's best to do it one-on-one. So I'm not saying out in front of the whole classroom, right? So maybe I'm pulling Felix aside and just saying, I noticed when you did this, and how did that help you as a learner? Those sort of interactions build that like an intrinsic bank of feel goods inside as well. So one last thing that I just wanted to add too is name the behaviors you actually notice, not the ones you hope to see. Because sometimes as educators, right, we're like, oh, I see all these students standing in line, but really you're trying to get them to do that thing that you're saying, and they're not. That is just like, that's not authentic. And so what I want to do is be specific. And if it's not, you don't reinforce. Shift to reminding language, right? And shift to, we've practiced. Who can tell me what it should look like? that we can use those languages interactively to really help get to that right end goal of being in a safe place, in a safe way, ready to learn as well. So, Kristen, I appreciate how when you were saying with praise, right? Like we need to shift away from that praise, but I don't want you to feel like you can't ever tell a child they are doing good things. Just tack on those specifics as well.
Yeah, that's so important, Tina. Thank you so much. And I know that, sometimes we use these strategies because they completely work in the moment. If you told a student they did a great job, they're going to feel so good about themselves and they're going to love it and love you. But do they know exactly what it was that was so good? So tack on the you did a great job at and name what it was that they did so that they start to learn what it is that helps them contribute to the positive community in their school, to contribute to achieving, to learning to read, to learning all their math so that they understand those specific behaviors and not always looking for an adult to tell them that they know what it looks like to have a straight line or to follow the rules or to be a good friend to their classmates. Absolutely. And Lena, what did you just drop in the chat for us? That looks amazing.
So one of the things that I dropped in the chat was just how honestly shifting the way that you speak can be intimidating. It's just like anything else, just how we're teaching our students new things, and it can be take some time for them to start to absorb and practice. It takes a while for us to change our language as well. So we have different types of language within the power of our words, and reinforcing language is just one of them. So Tina also mentioned reminding language. Reinforcing language is a great place to start, especially at the beginning of the school year, because it is easy to start to notice things where normally you would use praise, that you can start to pull in something where you can say that I see this or I noticed this and begin to shift it to something more specific. But what I also realized was the power of not just how this is with the teachers and the students, but also the shift that creates as school leaders. So something that's been awesome to see it working with Kristen and Tina is that Tina, for example, transitioned from being a principal to now working here and is actually our chief for a lot of us here, not for Kristen, but for most of the other folks that you may see our names here with Delisha and Casey. And she is really, really good at bringing in some things that she specifically has seen in terms of our day-to-day activities at work or the things that we have achieved and noticing those things and naming them specifically. So if you are starting to use that as well with how you're talking to your teachers and your staff, you're naming and noticing those things. You're also setting that example for how they can begin to do that with their students and showing that this is something that is just so useful no matter where you're at, who you're talking with. There are probably things where if you really think back, you might have a moment, whether it was in school or out of school, where someone said, hey, I saw that you did this, and that was really great that you did X, Y, Z. And I'm using great, which is a little bit less specific and more of the praise part. But that's an example of something that's approaching that reinforcing language that you've probably heard out and about, where you may have had someone notice something that you hadn't even realized is something great that you're doing. Having that opportunity to do something like that, not just for your students, but also for anyone that you see around you, including your teachers, can just be something that's such a transformative moment that really sticks with someone forever. And so I think that's a really, really great thing to start to bring into the classroom gradually and start to build that out so that you see that change and that belonging, and really just see that self-confidence in everyone, including your staff build.
Great point. Thank you so much, Lena. Thank you for sharing that quote from The Power of Our Words. That's really, really helpful. And I think, it does create consistency. So we hear a lot about school-wide consistency. When you have a big school, you've got multiple teachers and they all have their own way of doing things and their own words and their own rules and it gets hard for that consistency to take hold across the school. So this creates consistency. So having common language, common phrases, common ways that you're going to talk to students and get their attention, common ways you're going to point out all the good that's happening. kids learn that. They learn that this means this. The teacher is going to talk to me like this, and they get comfortable. Staff get comfortable with it, and as a school leader, you can model it, like Lena said. So it is a way to create school-wide consistency. So if you're a school leader in a building where you're seeing a lot of different ways of handling pointing out things that are going well and trying to deal with misbehavior. So again, reminding language and redirecting language. If you see a lot of inconsistency, like there's a clip chart in this classroom, and there's a stoplight in this classroom, and there's a marble jar in this classroom, and then this classroom has nothing, and this, like, really, we can help with that. So the responsive classroom approach really helps you have a school-wide consistent voice and approach to discipline and an approach to teaching where we can really help everyone get on the same page with that and just help all the students feel comfortable there. So I know Tina's had a lot of experience with that, coaching schools to have that consistency and creating it herself in her school.
Can I share one more story? Do we have time?
Yes,
Kristen,
we have time
the
for one
Tina
more
stories?
story. Yes.
Okay, so a few years ago in our school, what we were really trying, we had our school goal was on that reinforcing and reminding language. So one thing we did as a data collection tool, and the staff were all on board, just left our doors open. And during a certain time, we had a group of people that just had a clipboard, 3 columns, reinforcing, reminding, and redirecting language. And just walking through, not going in the classrooms, but just as we were walking the hallways, we did a sampler and just did check marks as to what kind of language are we noticing. Overwhelmingly, it was redirecting. I think naturally, as educators, we kind of veer towards that redirection. But how are they learning? How are they reinforcing for next time what they should be doing? So that was clear data for us to say, hey, let's all focus in on reinforcing and shift that, because you're going to get more of what you pay attention to. So it was just a data collection tool, very simple, 3 lines, and just paying attention to that sample set and then using that to be intentional about our growth goals for the next few months, and then another check-in. So that was really eye-opening for us too.
Very, very helpful to see that, to see the evidence and then kind of think about where you want to grow from there. Yeah, reinforcing language it's a habit that you get into, and we don't always have that habit. So it's, like Lena said, change is hard and creating new habits can be challenging, but it's so worth it when you have consistency across your school. Delisha, thank you so much for all this great information about reinforcing language. We appreciate it so much. And yeah, anyone here on this call is welcome to reach out to us. We obviously love talking about this topic and could talk about it for days and days. But really think about, even tomorrow when you're in your school building, walking around, how are you pointing out all the good things that are happening? And how are you saying that? And are you noticing specific behaviors for students, and see how they respond to that? Because I've had students say, well, is that good? If I say, well, I notice you're walking in a straight line, they're like, is it good? I'm like, you're following the rules. It is hard to get used to, but they catch on and it just becomes part of your school culture. So thank you so much, everyone. And again, we won't be together next week, but we'll be back on the 18th. And Lena will round out our webinar series for school leaders. So thank you so much, everyone, and have a great day and have a great weekend.